Welcome to New Zealand. Thanks for joining me again. This week, I'm just doing a video off the fly because the other day I was out using my camera. This video is about my M8, and if anybody, or so those of you rather, who have followed me for a little while will know that I love this camera. Possibly one of my favourite cameras. Just love it. It's an old Leica M8, the first ever digital Leica that was ever made. And if you know anything about the history of these cameras, you will kind of know that Leica didn't get it right first time, and they didn't get it right with the M9 either. There was problems with that. So they've had a bit of a history with digital cameras. The Leica M8, I just love this camera. I love the fact that in a digital camera, pretty much gets me as close to film as I can get. This is a very simple camera. It takes beautiful pictures in a simple way. Not a lot you can do with it. It's obviously a rangefinder, no autofocus, you know, the normal Leica stuff. So from a digital camera perspective, it's very close to using film, just because it's very simple and you don't have a lot of tricks up your sleeve when using it. It was a little bit of a time after I started using this camera that I actually found out that there was some dust on the sensor, or some what I thought was dust on the sensor. I can't remember how long it was, maybe a couple of months. But I was probably ramping up the dehaze on the picture or something and noticed that these dots and spots on the sensor. So that kind of got me a little bit annoyed because I'd only just kind of recently purchased this, and there was quite a bit of dust and marks on the sensor. So anyway, I went along and I purchased a sensor cleaning set and clean the sensor myself using sensor fluid. Watched a few YouTube videos, learned how to do it. Didn't seem to be too hard. Gave the sensor a clean and noticed a little bit of improvement, but I still had all those spots on the sensor. And for the last year or two since I've had this camera, I've kind of put up with the fact that I know in the back of my mind that maybe the sensor could be, you know, damaged in some way. I don't know. I kind of had moved past the notion that the marks on the sensor were actually dust. Anyway, over the last, I guess, 6 to 8 months, I've heard a few more stories cropping up about the problems with the M8 and a few people having the M8 die on them. And apparently now Leica are no longer fixing the sensors on these cameras as part of their warranty. So basically if you have any issues with the sensor, you'll have to pay for repairs. One of the reasons why I'm doing this video is that since I've started my channel and I've had several Leica M8 videos, and I get a lot of people, probably more than any other camera that I've used, I get more people asking me about the Leica M8 than any other camera. And the typical question that comes up is it still a worthwhile camera to buy? A couple of weeks ago I went out shooting with my Leica M8. I was out down at the river and it was just a gorgeous, typical foggy morning that we get here in this area. And I got down there and me and Bay were going for a walk. Took the Leica M8 with me and I had a Summicron 50 on there. And I got to the river and there were all these shags just floating in the water, sitting on tree stumps and dead trees in the water. So I spent about 30 minutes just taking some really nice shots. And I managed to get really close to some of these shags. I'm talking about 4 or 5 meters away from some of these birds. And they were just sitting there letting me take photographs. So I got some kind of epic shots there. Anyway, I got back home and I started developing these shots. And I have always been aware of my sensor, what I think are dust marks or slight pin marks on the sensor of this camera. But I noticed something different this time, and there were some lines there, some lines across the sensor. And initially I thought it might have been something in the fog, but I looked through more of the images, and the more images I looked through, the more I saw the same exact mark or line or set of lines through the picture. So I got a bit concerned, and this is going back a couple of weeks, and since then I really haven't had a chance to look into it too much. I've been pretty busy, but I'm just this morning I was just thinking to myself, is my M8 dying? And am I giving people good or bad advice on purchasing this camera in 2018, 19? Am I giving people good advice or bad advice by saying that they should be buying this camera, or it's a camera that they should be looking at? Because I still think it takes beautiful pictures. And even with the small dust marks on there, which I can fix in post, I can live with that. I just want to make sure that I'm not giving people the wrong advice, telling them that they should go and buy a camera, or advising them that it's a good thing to do to go and buy this camera. So hence, I think it's time to go and just check out this this camera and look at the lens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a series of procedures to check the sensor and see if I can fix it myself. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is basically change that lens. I've currently got a 50 on there, that old Summicron 50, and I'm going to put the 35 on there, and I'm going to see if that makes any difference, just to make sure, on the off chance that the lens might be the problem. Okay, I've taken a picture of that lens, I've put it through Lightroom, I've had a look, and I've still got the marks, I've still got the specs, so it's definitely not a lens problem. So my next step is I'm going to give the sensor a blowdown. I'm just going to blow that with an air blower and see if there's any surface material on the sensor, and then I'm going to check it again. And as you can see, I've still got the problem. No change in the problem. This is the picture, the image I took with just blowing that sensor. Okay, so that's the second step. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take a dry swab and I'm going to wipe that sensor with a swab, and let's see if it gets rid of the dust specks. What I'm thinking is dust specks and those lines. So it's going to do that, and we'll do the same thing again. Take a picture of the sky and then check it on Lightroom and see if there's any marks or specks on that sensor. Fingers crossed. Well, good news. I've cleaned that sensor with the dry swab, and success. I'm wrapped. I've gotten most of the dust off, and I've definitely got those lines out of the sensor, which was my biggest concern. So right now I'm feeling pretty relieved, and I'm thinking about using the sensor fluid to finish off the cleaning, but I'm going to just hang off a little bit, and I'm going to put the question out there to you people, anybody who's had the M8 or an M9, are you using sensor fluid to clean your sensor? I've kind of been told not to do it, so I'm not going to go ahead and do it at the moment. I'm just going to hang off on that. But just interested in some feedback, interested on getting some knowledge from you guys. So I'd be interested in that. But again, I'm pretty relieved, and it's made me feel fairly happy. So at the moment, my advice, again, one of the other reasons why I wanted to do this video was just to tell people, more directly, because I get the question a lot, M8, is it worth buying? I think it is. If you're buying it, I think definitely look at some images off the camera first. Have a look and see what condition that sensor is in. Double check it for sure before you purchase. But if that's all good, I would still recommend it as a decent camera to buy. Remember, look, this is a second-hand old camera, and for the same price you could probably buy a decent new digital camera, but it won't be a Leica. And that might not be a problem, but it won't be a Leica. I still think it's worth buying. It's still a cool camera. If you love Leica cameras, it's great to have an M. And this is a good way of getting into Leica M cameras. It's the cheapest way of getting in, so go for it. That would be my recommendation. But I just put a little bit of a hesitancy on that and say, just check that sensor out first. And just to understand that this camera isn't going to last forever. It's not like a film camera. It's got its limitations. Well, that's about all for this week. Again, thanks for joining me. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I'd really appreciate it. If you want to help me out, help my channel out, the best way you can do that is to subscribe, and you can do that by simply just clicking the little button on the screen here, or there's a subscribe button down below, and usually there's a little bell there too, so if you hit the bell every time I put a new video out, you'll get a notification and you'll be able to know when my latest video comes out. It's very handy. If you'd also like to help me out in other ways, I've got my book Stolen Moments, which is available now from my shop. I'll put a link below for that. I did a video about stolen moments a few weeks ago. Check out that video. I'll also put a link below for that. So Stolen Moments is my photo book. It's available for 25 New Zealand dollars from my shop. Equates roughly to half that in US dollars and euros. So it's about 12 euros, 12 US dollars, £10, that kind of money. That's my little photo book. And they're all signed. Link below for that. That's if you want to support me. I'd really appreciate it. Also, go and check out my Instagram feed, my Facebook page. I'll put links below for that. Go and check out my website. Check out what I'm doing on a regular basis. All those kind of social media things are other ways you can follow me. I'd appreciate it. And you can see more pictures from my Leica M8, which will be coming up in the future, hopefully, because now I don't have to worry about it dying. So it's all good. Until next time, please take care. Come back again soon, and I'll see you again. Haere rā from New Zealand. Goodbye.